Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo and we're here at the South Park Center. I'm delighted to be joined with Kevin. He's all the way here from the Netherlands with his fantastic film, La Última Ascensión. Let's take a look at the clip. Kevin, it's a delight to have you here and thank you for coming halfway across the world, and it's been a pleasure to have you and all of the amazing people from the Netherlands as well.
Thanks for having me.
Your film's amazing, like it really is, and it was so beautiful to see it on the big screen as well. For those that haven't seen it, tell us a brief synopsis.
Yeah, so La Última Ascensión is a story about Rowan, who's a fisherman, and every day he goes to the shore to catch fish without many luck. And then one day he meets this sort of indigenous spirit who is sort of dancing, and he thinks he's mocking him, but actually through sort of movement and rituals, he's helping him to catch more fish, and also helping him with his grieving process at home with his mom.
It was so special to kind of just see, you know, the lead character and his emotions unfold through movement. It was just kind of really mesmerizing to watch, and I kind of love looking deeper into where the inspiration came from in creating this story. So I'd share a little bit about where the inspiration came and how you wanted to turn this story into a film. Yeah,
it's funny because the film started from, there's different points where this film starts. So there's sort of this personal layer which motivated me of sort of exploring loss within my family, sort of how we grieve, how do we deal with grief from people from Curacao where the film is shot. But also I'm very interested in colonial history from where I come from. Not only the sort of the Dutch layer, because Curacao was colonized by the Dutch, but also the Spanish layer when the indigenous were there. Yeah. There was never sort of a mix between the two groups, like the indigenous and people that came from Africa. So I wanted to create a film where these sort of rituals could meet, sort of how would our future look like if we had this sort of indigenous power, if we embraced that. Yeah. So that was sort of the starting point of the whole film. Yeah, I mean, firstly, tell us a little bit about where you actually filmed. It looked like one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Like, my goodness, like I was like, is this real? Like, how? Like, stunning. Like, tell us about where you shot it and what that place means to you and how you came across shooting there. Yeah, so it's Curacao. It's a small island in the Caribbean. It's next to Aruba and Bonaire. It's like on the coast of Venezuela. And I grew up there. I lived there for the majority of my life. So for me, it's home actually, and it's a place that it's a paradise, but there's a paradox as well. I always say to people, because within that beauty, there's also a lot of pain. Yeah. Pain, historical pain, but also pain in the now. So I think with my film, I want to sort of explore all those layers, and I think that's why also the visually the film is so sort of stunning. But there's this sort of layer of pain that I'm playing with. Absolutely, yeah. So I think that's also something that's gonna, throughout my career, I think I'm gonna continue diving deeper into. Yeah, and I really love how you mentioned, of course, you know, visually, you know, it's very beautiful to watch, but there's a lot of pain that's going on in between the context of that. And I thought your characters from the, you know, the mother and the son, their spirit was just, they were so engaging. You felt so much from what each of them were feeling in very different ways. And I thought you casted it so beautifully as well. Tell us about how you brought your characters together. Yeah. Well, casting was very interesting because my main character is an actor, and I've followed him for a while. His name is Kendrick. I really wanted to work with him, and this felt like the right project. So I did do a little bit of casting, but I felt like the role was for him. Yeah. And the mother actually is Yolanda. She lives on the island. So Kendrick lives in the Netherlands, but she lives on the island. And while casting her, we had a lot of conversation. She's a grieving coach, for example. She helps people with grieving. So it made a lot of sense to work with her. Yeah. And I remember her audition went very fast. It was like 5 minutes, and then she left, and she got the call that she was casted, and she was so surprised because she thought went so bad. But actually it went so good because we were all so speechless about what she did. We felt it right away. And then the indigenous spirit, it was very difficult to find someone that sort of has indigenous roots because there was so much disruptions. We don't have people with indigenous blood on the island specifically. So we sort of looked broader in the global south, and we found Abel from Mexico. And he's not an actor, but he had experience with martial arts and sort of movement. So that's why I casted him. And the funny thing is that Kendrick doesn't speak Spanish and Abel doesn't speak English. And in the movie, they don't speak to each other, so they communicate in an alternative way. So that also made it very interesting working with two people that cannot communicate with language. They stayed together, for example, while we were filming. So they also needed to develop their own language. So there's a part of a reality there as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that they, because I mean, there was so much expressed through movement and through, their visual expressions as well. It's almost kind of quite beautiful that they were only able to engage in that way. I was fascinated by, curious about how you as a director directed, scenes like this. Obviously, from dialogue, but also just, there was so much expression through movement. How did you incorporate movement into it as well?
Yeah, that was it was a whole choreography also with cinematographer Mirta Mosterman that I worked with. We spoke a lot about like sort of following the magic of the island, following what's happening. So I really wanted to create a sort of freedom with the camera and let the camera sort of glide. We used a lot of Steadicam. But for me, it was important to not only with my characters to sort of directing them and sort of let them guide the story, but also let Mirta really take control and feel what she's feeling in that moment to catch. So often I feel like the camera drifts away, which I really enjoyed because we were actually creating in that moment. So we slowly left the script for what it was and really explored what was happening there. And I think that's sort of something that also in my career I want to continue exploring. Like how can I write something and then have us all understand what's going on and then just throw it away and then just feel and go. When you're creating, obviously, mother and son, that's got one dynamic, which, was very powerful to kind of see how they're both dealing with grief. And then when you're creating a spirit, like how did you go about creating that? Because it was very beautiful to see this, this spirit like unfold and the kind of dynamics of what this spirit was trying to give meaning to what was happening in their grief. How did you go about creating that and then telling your actor how to be in respect? Yeah, I think often about like how and it's very funny because I say this often in interviews in the Netherlands, but now I'm actually in Hollywood. But when we think about sort of spirits, Hollywood did something, with rituals in the Caribbean, how we see voodoo, for example. It's very dark, it's very black magic, it's very, there's this sort of layer. And I think with my films, I wanted to cleanse that, also with sort of this spirit, to present it as a human, because I think it's just a manifestation of someone that lived in the past. So this sort of magical realism, for me, it was very logical to present it as just a character that exists. So I really enjoyed that some people asked the question: is this a character? Is this a spirit or not? So I really didn't want to play with the sort of a vanishing to happen in front of the camera. He's just there and then he's gone, and that for me was a very important part, to keep it in the sort of this realm. What we see, we can see it with our eyes.
And the beauty and the pureness in magic and realism, I thought was just captured so amazing. It was so wonderful on camera. And as you say, it's been wrongly put out there in Hollywood films, and so I think you just did a really good job with that. What was it like? Obviously you grew up there. Moved to Netherlands, coming back, making a film there. Like it must feel very special making a film on this, what appears to be very powerful island, and making a film in this place. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was full circle, like you said. It for me, going to the Netherlands to study arts was very challenging for my parents, for example. Because they think about job security, they think about the arts. There's sort of not much possibilities on the island with sort of making a career. So for me, it was important to sort of get the knowledge there and then come back and sort of make it sustainable. So bring the knowledge back on the island.
Definitely.
Also giving it to interns, people that sort of work on the cast and crew. Also having my mother being part of the production design team.
Oh, she did a good job.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And she also did the hair and makeup.
Wow.
And my mom, for example, is the person that, like working with my hands. I had them from when I was really young. She did wedding decorations, and she's a hairdresser. So I helped her a lot. So it was a very beautiful full circle moment of having her working with her hands on something that I'm creating, you know, having her on the call sheet, having her in the credits. That felt very nice. And also a moment of sort of, yes, this is what it means. I think the Caribbean as a sort of perspective within cinema needs more of a position. And I think that's also something that I really want to continue developing.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you took context. Obviously, it's, you know, from your experiences, but the effects of, you know, colonization from a Dutch, you know, but we don't see enough of that in our, and, you know, and the Caribbean in general as well.
Exactly.
And so, you know, is it in your, as you're moving forward in your career, what do you want next? What are your plans next?
That's a very great. Yes, I'm writing a lot, and I'm not a very hasty filmmaker that it needs to happen now. I really enjoy taking my time. I'm exploring sort of the lottery culture on the island that really sort of speaks to me. All the rituals around it. So that's something that I really want to sort of dive into and make it into a feature. So we got funding. I'm carefully developing, going to the island. And it's very difficult writing from the Netherlands about a movie there because I've lived there all my life. Yeah. But still there's a sort of a distance. So I try to go back there when I'm writing. And it's for me, it's very much even... Fiction is not that interesting. It's the reality, you know, just going to sort of a corner store and buying something, and that conversation, that interaction really inspires me to sort of write a sort of a dialogue or a scene. Yeah. So I think that going back and really sort of absorb the Caribbean and really understand it for myself, and then putting those into scripts and hopefully into movies. Absolutely.
And I'm just curious, like, you know, it's your film is definitely one for the big screen, you know, to experience it, but also to kind of take in everything that you put into it. I mean, I just thought the movement was just it was unbelievable, just because of watch these characters unfold through their pain and traumas in this beautiful place, right? What's the reaction been like for you with festivals? What's, you know, what, and also not just what the reaction is, what did you want your audience to experience from your film?
Yeah, so for me, La Última Ascensión is a question, and I'm a visual artist as well, and I work also in the sort of White Cube Museum context, and I really enjoy working with my audience. So I ask also for you to participate, for you to interpret, for you to use your imagination. So I put it out there, but it's also sort of a collaboration between me and the viewer. So in that sense, I see it more as a sort of a question, and I want that sort of question to linger. So that was sort of for me, the sort of the success, that sort of feeling. There's something that you don't know, something that you really don't understand. But I enjoy when people can sort of sit and absorb those. But what I really enjoyed that people spoke about is the sea being sort of also a character within the film, something that sort of gives the fish, but also took the brother of the main character. So this sort of constant give and take, and the sea being sort of almost, I wouldn't want to say innocent. It's innocent, but it's still guilty in that sense. And it's also the same sea that caused this sort of crossing of the Atlantics with the whole slave trade. So that symbol is understood. That I really enjoyed that as well, of sort of reactions that I've get from people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think your film has got so much context in there. You could watch it a few times and keep on discovering new elements that you've made us feel as well. So fantastic job. So obviously nice to hear the lines you're on, you know, moving on next. And, you know, as a visual artist, I mean, visually it was spectacular to watch, but just to kind of close up, do you as a filmmaker, as a creative person, did you have any advice you could share with other filmmakers of what you kind of go by, what's important to you when you're, you know, helping other people in their journeys as well?
Yeah, I think especially when you're starting out, to really find people around you that you feel safe with. I think that's the best, and make sure there's, the film world has sort of its jargon. You don't have to know everything. You just find a way, find people that can translate it to your team, speak in your own language. I think that's very important, because that helped me a lot, creating my own sort of way of how it is to write a script. And follow your intuition, because you trust that your intuition also is very informed. I think that especially when you're starting out, be close to yourself, and then it builds up confidence to sort of work with sort of bigger production, bigger teams. And
Absolutely.
But I think your voice, you need to find it with people that's sort of trusted and safe, and give you the space.
Well, I'm just glad you brought your film to New Filmmakers LA. Congratulations on this film. I'm looking forward to your next projects and the world you take us into next. But yeah, welcome to the New Filmmakers LA family. So glad to have you.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.